everyone, this is Natalia on Luxury with Natalia. I have a special guest who's flown in right straight from London, all the way in the south of France, Louise Simpson. How are you?
Lovely to see you.
Nice to
Yeah.
have you on. And of course, it's a miserable day today out of all days, but you've come to the south of France. What are you
I
doing
know,
here?
you should be sunshine. What's wrong? I've obviously brought the rain over from London.
Yes,
so
yes.
it's
Well, we
just,
have to remind
yeah.
ourselves that we can have rainy days and come up with creative ways of
Yeah.
entertaining ourselves. So, what are you doing down here, Louise?
Well, I come down here once every couple of months because this is sort of my neck of the woods and what I cover for many different publications, from the Telegraph and many other newspapers to Froma's travel guides, and and even local publications down here.
Amazing.
So I've been reviewing a lot of hotels down here recently, and that's been interesting. A lot of luxurious destinations, which has been lovely.
Very jealous. So,
Yeah.
what's been your favorite place down on the Côte d'Azur? Give us some insight.
Well, last year we went to stay at the Four Seasons in Cap Ferrat, and that was a rather amazing. The biggest, it's actually bigger than our flat in London, so the hotel room. So
The hotel
yes,
room. I was going to say, wait, you live in an amazing property then.
so yes, one of those hotel rooms just
Yeah.
goes on forever.
Oh, wonderful.
So
We
yeah,
are spoilt for choice here, aren't
you
we?
are definitely spoilt for choice on the Côte d'Azur.
But there must be
And
some hidden secrets that you probably have written about. And
well, it's a very curious thing, I find, that people often just think of the coast, and very few people seem to actually explore even a couple of hours inland. And what I found over the years is that it actually, if you get on a train and go up to somewhere like Tende, then you will find these amazing orchids in fields and ancient cave sort of rock paintings, and people don't discover these things always, and I think that's quite sad. There's also some amazing gorges which are there to visit if you go up to the Verdun, obviously, with its emerald waters, which is really fabulous. But even closer to home, there are many. And the fact that you can go skiing here as well within a couple of hours. I remember sort of literally dropping the children off and then going off to a ski resort and back again all in a day, which I think is very unusual. There aren't many destinations around the world where you can have the sun and then the ski and the water, sort of gorges with canoeing, all within quite a small space.
It's true. I've lived here since, I think, 92 now, a long, long time, and I still haven't seen everything. And even just down the road from where I am, there's been a couple of places I've discovered recently. I thought, it's time, I have to go and see these things. But yeah, you don't have enough time in the world to do all these wonderful things. How do you cope, though, with all your busy schedule?
Well, I think sometimes when you live somewhere, actually, you tend to not explore. I know that I'm like that in London. I have my favourite places that I go to. And it's interesting sometimes, this has forced me to explore the region. And particularly when I first arrived here, and I was actually 8 months pregnant with my daughter. And I quickly had to work out how I was going to renegotiate my career in travel around the fact that now I had children. And at that point, I decided that I was going to write a book about traveling with children. And I actually did the research with my daughter in a sling and started exploring around the Côte d'Azur that way. And it was a great way to start my journey along the French Riviera.
Wonderful.
And now she's 14, so that's quite a while back.
But it started in that way, or how did you get into writing?
Yes, it started in that way, but I had been writing for many years before that. So I actually started, weirdly, in fashion journalism at Vogue magazine, Condé Nast, which was a great time making the tea. But I quickly decided that actually travel was more where my heart was. And I lucked out at the time by meeting the editor of Travel magazine, and I sort of moved across there and then moved up the ranks and then edited travel guides in London, and so travelled the world before moving down here. So it's, yeah.
It's one of those jobs everybody wants to have, because the luxury of going around these amazing places and being treated rather nicely, I would say, right? You get some perks,
yes,
upgrades and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I do try and cover for all budgets.
Yes.
It's one of the things I'm always quite keen to do. So although I have stayed in some beautiful places, you can find them at all budgets. And a great thing I recently found was that in Nice now, they have some very good budget hotels, which is sort of between a hotel and a youth hostel. And it's very much a new concept, which I think is going to continue in the future, where gone are the days when the youth hostel was sort of 8 people to a dormitory, which was rather smelly with no amenities. Nowadays, the standards have upped, and that's good news for travellers. And I also think that perhaps the advent of Airbnb has actually made hotels adjust their game, and it could be a good thing, because they seek to make the experience one not just of a hotel room, but of a whole experience of what they can offer above and beyond that. And I think that could potentially be one of the upsides of Airbnb.
Especially also with Airbnb now coming out with more experiential ways of staying in a private property, then hotels need to
up their game
and
accordingly.
get into it, and then do something a little bit different or smarter. So that's interesting. Good.
Yeah.
And tell me a bit more about out there, further afield. What is your favorite destination and why?
Well, one of the destinations always comes to mind is when I did a couple of months in Barbados. And I remember at the time thinking, I'm going to explore the national dish of Barbados. And I imagined that it was going to be a fish dish, as you do, surrounded by water. And I was very surprised to find that it's actually pudding and sauce, which is made of pork. And not just pork, it's made of the pig's head, which... And when I found out all this, I thought, I have to do this. And I then found a local Bayesian woman who made the pudding and sauce for her whole village in Barbados. And this wasn't one of the tourist villages, this was one of the inland villages. And so I sourced her out, and then I went and said, I want to have a day in your life when you're making this dish, and we'll go together. So literally we started the day going to the abattoir to pick up the pig's head.
Wow,
right from the start. Went back to her house, and she was sort of chopping off the ears and the nose, and we cooked it all together, and it's some amazing pickles, and the sauce it's a very prickly sauce, so some real taste in there. And then serving it out to all the villagers, because it is a tradition that once a week they have pudding and sauce.
Once a week,
and it was a lovely article that I wrote for the Financial Times weekend at the time. So it was just a fun assignment where I thought I'd do something a little off the beaten track, as it were. Yes, and seemed quite a nice contrast to the sort of luxurious restaurants in Barbados.
Yes, and nowadays people are more about the experiential, not necessarily the definition of luxury as it used to be back in the day, staying in the most amazing hotel, most expensive, etc., etc. So nowadays, what are people looking for? I mean, we're talking about
reading. I think when people are, when I'm writing an article now, I try and think of a different angle. So an interesting article I did last year was actually for the Prince's birthday, and it was on National Day, and I decided to get together 7 of the top chefs along the Côte d'Azur, so in Monaco, of course. So we had Christophe Coussac, Jean Robuchon's protégé, all the way to Nice, where we had Jan, who's the only Michelin-starred chef outside of South Africa.
Correct, I've been to his restaurant, amazing.
And then we had the chèvre d'or. We actually had the pastry chef as well as the main chef, because the pastry chef has been on TV a lot. On sort of a TV show in Paris.
He has that lemon.
Yes.
Oh goodness,
he's a genius.
Yes.
And we also obviously had Mauro Colagreco, who I think has been listed as like one of the top 50 chefs in the world.
#1 top restaurant now.
Yes.
So
all these very amazing chefs collected together and made a dish in the colours of red and white, so in the national colours of Monaco, and prepared it sort of a meal fit for a prince.
Oh, super.
And it was just a fun photo shoot and a fun way to...
And tasting?
Tasting, yes.
Did you get to the Oh, amazing. Oh.
So just thinking outside the box.
Exactly, and going above what the expectations might be, and having fun. This is also something that's creeping in now. Forget the whole let's be serious. Let's just be fun with the ingredients and present it in a beautiful way, of course, but maybe just sparking that little bit of extra something, right? So that's nice. And tell me a bit more then, in terms of your career. So we have International Women's Day coming up on March the 8th. How is it being a woman writer, travel writer, food and wine writer? Do you get the same respect, or is it different? It's just intriguing, I think, for our audience who might think, that doesn't matter, it's the same across the board. But
I think that there aren't enough women out there travel writing. It's interesting, we have a guild of 300 travel writers in England, and it's perhaps noticeable that when it comes to writing for the nationals and doing the more mainstream stuff, there is a slight bias towards male travel writers, and perhaps it's because, of course, women during their career perhaps go off and have children and the financial needs and so on. But yes, I'm very much would like to promote women.
That's good. So we have a voice for women, not saying that we're feminists or anything, but it's just there's so much talent out there. And how would one start? Your advice, do you know any insights for people who might want to give their shot on doing some writing? What's the best avenue of going for?
Well, as a woman, I think that what I did was I adapted my career around having children, so that instead of getting on a plane and visiting all ends of the earth, I decided to concentrate on the French Riviera. And that was something that enabled me to take a career that had been formed pre-kids and continue it in a way that's actually been both interesting and also satisfying for me as a mother. So a balance, and that's worked really well. I think it's working out where you can go that works for you personally. Interestingly, because my parents are now a little older, I recently have just got embarked on a project with the Good Pub Guide back in the UK, and it's because I decided to take on the region where my parents live as an excuse to go up and visit for my parents and I to go to the local pubs, and they've actually been my chief researchers because they've been phoning up, so saying, you must write about this pub, that one's got to be ditched, totally terrible, new change of management, really bad food now. So
bit of behind the scenes,
behind the scenes,
know who you are, and so they can go in and then give you the back end of the information. Nice.
So it's interesting. And I think it's one of the interesting things about being a travel journalist is that now we live in a world in which there's a lot of positive PR about destinations, but I do think there's a role for discriminating journalism, which also has the ability to be negative as well as positive. And it's one of the challenges I see for the future of travel journalism, that if everything becomes paid for or it's promoted on an Instagram page, which has a financial element, then that has a problem with really informing the public. So one thing I have done, say for example when I was writing about restaurants in Monaco, is that I did take the controversial step at the time of being negative about some of the restaurants as well as positive, which actually in the end brought benefits to Monaco dining, I believe, because actually I remember writing about several restaurants which were quite well known in the Principality, name no names, but it was quite controversial at the time. But my criticism was taken on board, and I'm actually pleased to say that those restaurants did go the extra effort. One restaurant actually took on board a dietitian, a nutritionist, to change the menu towards more healthy eating. Another place actually closed down and reopened, and other people changed their staffing methods. So that it's good to see that actually there was a response, and I think it's probably better for everybody.
Because also us individuals go onto TripAdvisor and write good or bad things. Generally, when you go on TripAdvisor, if there's something bad, you want to make sure that it's come out there. So so having that balance, yes, as you mentioned, you travel and destination writers and food and wine writers, you do a fantastic job being, you know, complimentary to these places, but yet maybe just having that normal,
I think it's really important. And
feedback.
Occasionally it's a little sad and difficult. I remember writing about a wonderful hotel, the Hotel Negresco in Nice, which I remember very fondly from when I was much, much younger. And sadly, because of the owner, she's now passed away, but at the time of my writing my review for the Telegraph a couple of years ago, she was in her late 90s, and her eye had obviously been taken off the ball, and it was very sad to see this fantastic hotel in such a tragic state. And I'd noticed that it hadn't really been written about, but I felt it was very important to be honest about this icon, in the hope that actually they would find a way for the future, because there's 6,000 artworks in the hotel. And so I did write the truth, and it was quite a shocking review.
Oh no! How was it?
But interestingly, since then, they're actually now seeking to rework how the management's going to work, although there are complications, because as the lady passed away, she passed the management of the hotel to an animal home. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think there's going to be a little while before that hotel can recoup the glory of the past, but I'm sure it will, because it's
such an iconic building.
It's an iconic building with so many artworks.
Yes. And passing on to animals, as we know, is also Karl Lagerfeld and his cat. So how does that all work? It's quite peculiar.
Yes, I'm a big fan of Karl Lagerfeld, and I think he did a very beautiful piece in the Metropole in Monaco by the pool there.
That's right.
A lovely frieze.
Exactly, it's still there. It will be remembered and kept, I'm sure, for years to come. So that's amazing. And then the last question I thought I'd ask you is, of course, your own definition of luxury. What might that be?
That's a very curious one. So having written about so many Michelin-starred restaurants over the years, if I'm honest, my luxury is slightly simpler. I'm very happy with a lovely pub overlooking a lovely view, and for me it's a lot about location.
Location.
And
this location, you can't see everyone, but we have the sea facing us, and Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. It's a beautiful location, and the Welcome Hotel is very welcoming. Another destination to come and explore. So hopefully we'll see more of you, Louise, in weeks and months to come. And good luck with your stay here on the French Riviera.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you.
Likewise. So thanks everyone for watching this episode, Luxury with Natalia, and more episodes coming soon, especially ahead of Women's Day. Take care, everyone. Bye.